Hey, welcome back to Shed Talk. I'm your host, Sean. Got another guest coming in to give us a little information, insight on some of the research that she has done. She's out there in Canada. She goes by the name of Red Gospel. How are we doing today? Welcome
Oh,
in.
we do, and actually get a break from all this researching since I'm sitting here with you.
Right, right, right. Yeah, it's always a good time to sit down and talk to somebody about all the research that you have been doing. This the present time of what's going on out here is kind of critical. Um, I just want you to dive directly into it.
Just,
I'm just going to cut the bullshit.
just head. Yeah, all
Go ahead and
right,
tell
all
me
right.
about the research.
Bold move. All right. Well, in a nutshell, it's the Palestinian conflict is what got me to pay attention to why are people killing themselves and blaming religion. When at the end of the day, you're looking, I'm like, but I'm listening to politicians, but it's religion doing the dirty work here. Um, and then obviously everyone knows it's a long history, that conflict. But then I looked into it and I'm like, it's ancient, but it's not. This is the recent one. And then when you start, I just chose to go with the side of history that they would rather we don't look at. And while I did that, if I'm doing history, doctrine is history also. And that's when I started seeing that the reflection of what doctrine said and what history actually said, they don't add up. So that's what got me to really start questioning the basis of religion. And I've always really seen that religion was the foundation of our patriarchal systems. Now, when I say patriarchal systems, it's not that I'm looking to hate on men. The patriarchy has screwed us all over. Men, women, doesn't matter. They've got us divided. And it's from the soul perspective that that's their tactic. That's their entire um, manipulation, is how much they've got us divided within, and it reflects without. That's why it's always been a conflict between men and women, I think, and for a long time. Like I'm saying, like thousands of years, like men and women are like getting along, or one is above the other, which is not our precept. So
Right,
yeah.
right. So, what what's your most recent information that you have uh, finding out? What have you found out that people need to know about? What are some of the things that people need to know
Well,
exactly
my
what you found
first
out?
perspective through all of this was I call the Bible Jumanji, because when you really want to get into it, not just be told that by a middleman, it's really there's a lot of metaphor, because I mean Christ himself spoke in parables. Most people have a hard time understanding what he was talking about. So there's a lot in doctrine that is parable and metaphor that was put to physicality and reality that should never have been done. Um, for an
Okay, like
example,
what?
well, the example is like the tree of knowledge. There's no physical tree out there that has a fruit that's going to give you knowledge. We are the tree. I mean, but most specifically in ancient times, the trees were women. They were the ones that ended up spiritually, psychically, as the embodiment of the tree of knowledge. Um, since I've only looked into any of this, I'm 36. That's the year that I started reading this stuff. So at this point, my mind has never really been formed through like doctrine to view it per se, how society or a priest or my parents would want me to see it, because I wasn't exposed to it. I didn't have to go through it, and that was that. Um, the story in Genesis alone, the serpent says that you will not die if you eat the fruit, for you will be like a God, knowing good and evil. And that was my
Mm-hmm.
biggest right away red flag. I was like, the only time that's a bad thing for us to know good and evil is for an evildoer not to get caught. If we can't discern when we're being, it's like a Stockholm syndrome, right? So if you don't know you're being abused, you're going to keep looking for the abuse.
Right.
So the only time not knowing the discernment between good and evil is when you're being led by evil. And that's what the Lord God said, though. So that's when I picked it up right away. I was like, okay, so chapter 1, we have God. And then it goes to Lord God after that. And it's like yells it in your face, Lord. Then we go God. And that's when I saw that there's the duality, and it's always been the internal perception of, say, a prophet or an elite, a high priest or a master of whatever ancient times. It's always just been
Mhm.
the human mind writing doctrine. No book came from like the skies or above or a god. It was always man made. We made a lot of destruction out of that from believing that it was like, not saying now and today, but this is why now we're like, what is happening? Because we wouldn't allow that, because it doesn't make sense to our generations. It's almost like we've developed a discernment of like, well, no, we don't do that for God. So there is a shift there that happened. And I think that the best use of all of this for using it as their advantage, especially when I say like the elites or like way back, when I say way back, it's like before Egypt, there was a group, they go, I think, with the Atlantean time. So Atlantis, no one can prove. To me, Atlantis, I don't
Mhm.
think was an actual, this is my own opinion, I could be wrong, and I'm fine with it. I think it was like a tri-city, maybe like Rome, Greece, Egypt, when they were starting they were kind of getting into it a lot in the Mediterranean. And then there's a group of like, they call them the sons of darkness. So there were the sons of light and the sons of darkness. And they are who became the priesthood, using a lot of tactics of manipulation. And it's always been our innate knowledge that they use against us. So even like our own innate knowledge of our own intelligence, our own soul, our own connection to God, they demonize that a lot. So that's basically what my biggest finding has been. And that example of the serpent in the beginning, that's page 1. And I think at the end, it almost feels like it's just like a riddle to be solved, because with Revelation, it's I'm the Alpha, I'm the Omega, it's the beginning and the end. That's almost all you
Right.
need to start really seeing that there's something not right here. Other than that, the middle is just the historical events of like all the wrongdoers, from us not knowing the discernment of what was actually right and wrong, and then some prophets coming along and then calling it out, being like, that's not how you should, but then they would kill them. So the wrongdoers, the evildoers, would always keep doing what they're doing, because the one that would come in and call it out, the serpent, would get taken out. And I think that's why even Christ himself says, like, so too must I be raised up on the staff, or something like that, as like Moses did. So Moses had a serpent on his staff. So the serpent is symbolized through it all with the
Okay.
prophet that we revere the most.
Okay. So you found this information that the serpent wasn't bad. It was pretty much giving us the heads up. Is that what you're saying?
So if I were to metaphorically apply it, it's like the tree of knowledge is God and the serpent is
Mhm.
Christ. I mean, they say in the beginning that the serpent is craftier than all the other animals, which would mean he's rebellious. We all know Christ was he was a rebel. He stood out of
Mhm.
the temple. He called out the wrongdoers for being wrongdoers. He called out the elites for doing the work of their father Satan, and that the lust of their fathers would be what they do. He calls out the generational trauma. Even when he says, like, if I do the work of Beelzebub, who will your children cast devils out by? Let them be your judge. There's so much that's been like in our face, and I think that's what
Hmm.
really like overwhelming to people. But yeah, the serpent wasn't bad, because how? And a lot of people I get is like, well, why wouldn't God have like warned them of the serpent? Maybe because the serpent was of God. The only one that actually
So
seems to
you feel
care.
that the serpent was of God.
And through a lot of ancient symbolism before indoctrinated Rome, or like books that said you needed a middleman to God, the serpent was knowledge.
The serpent was knowledge, and
Mhm.
with this knowledge, it was the serpent was trying to uh, let everybody know what was really going on?
That serpent was
So,
calling,
so
like,
where
so,
did you get this information at?
but just by like, so like if I say there, like word for word in Genesis, the serpent says, uh, for you shall not, certainly you shall not die if you eat it. Therefore you'll be like gods, knowing good and evil. And then even once they eat it,
Right,
Lord God appears and then he says it too. Oh, man is like one of us. And that's the thing. He says one of us, and the serpent says gods too, not as God, as gods, plural, in every biblical form. So page 1, we're
okay,
told
so
that we are
where
God.
does so page one where we are told that we are gods?
That
Okay, okay,
knowledge will get you to the understanding of God. And all the doctrines that I've read on the side, like the Nag Hammadi and especially the Dead Sea Scrolls, it's like, this is another thing that I pulled out was the people that get right in your face about fearing God. I never understood that. Why would I fear God? What God should be like
right,
nothing to fear, in my opinion. And then it's like, wouldn't it be like the devil that would want you to fear God? Because fear
right.
resonates at like, it's not coherent. And in the not the, excuse me, the Dead Sea Scrolls, it says if you fear God, you should go find knowledge, for you're supposed to love God. So there's a lot of
So you're
wordplay,
supposed to love God.
and so many people go with the God fearing. And when you're God fearing, fear resonates at resentment, at it's not good. It's like there's hatred with fear. Keeps us
So
divided.
what else have you found with this information that you're actually looking up? What other things have you found with this information?
Because of realizing I already had a lot of knowledge with the ancients, like the Egyptians, the Greeks. And I started seeing that there was a lot of mirroring to the Egyptian Kemet, which was the Egyptian faith belief system. And there is Greek in there too. Even like at
Hmm.
the end of the Bible, the Revelation itself, when John has his vision of Christ returning to give his message, he says his feet looked like they had been um, in a brazen, like if they were brass. Well, that's the Greek god Ares. He has brass wings on his feet. So, and the doctrines have been translated from
Okay.
Greek a lot. Not just a lot, especially
All right.
Revelation.
With that,
Revelation was written in Greek.
right, right, right. I hear what you're
And
saying. So
Revelation,
with
like,
that information, can you
go ahead.
real quick, when he's talking about the current events of what's going on out here in the world today at this present moment over in the Middle East, where does this all come to play at?
This is my own feeling of it. It's there's a reason why history keeps repeating itself. And I think it has to do with Revelation, but
Okay.
not because we are actually meant to, like, the thing too, it's like end of times. It's not the world exploding into decimation. It's the end of the time they fabricated, the illusion. Um, when they say the
Hmm.
earth, the Bible knows there's the earth and then there's the world. They mention the earth is it's the homeland, it's the planet. The world is the reality we give it. The end of the world is the end of
Right.
the righteous evils. The ones are, we're just kept in the dark
The
while
righteous evil.
and they're eating children. And they've been doing it forever. Even in doctrine, that's what prophets would come out and call out. So I think that this is why it keeps repeating itself is they want that third temple so bad.
Hmm.
And it's starting to be like, it's
So
eerie, to be honest.
hold on, hold on. What is the third temple? You gotta, go a little bit into that so that the listeners and viewers can look this up.
So the third temple is basically like after the second temple was taken out, which was Solomon's temple. The Al-Aqsa Mosque has been over it. So where it's basically where the rock is. So that's that holy rock, that one place that I'm not sure. I think so many
Hmm.
prophets have been there. I'm not going to start. I haven't really looked into the rock itself, but that's where they want the third temple. The temple was basically like where they did all their sacrifices. So
Right.
I want to say that yes, I believe that there are extremists. It's extreme enough that they want to bring back ritualistic sacrifice where the third temple
Who
would
wants
be.
to bring this back?
Israel? It's not the Christians that want a temple of
Israel.
sacrifice.
Okay.
And if you look through doctrine enough, it's like
Okay.
that's all it's
So,
been. There's books in the Bible that's all. It's like the glory of sacrificing things, and some of them it's like all they talk about is the blood. It's like, are we going to wake up eventually to the reality that still today this is happening, and
right,
it seems to be the holy war that they've always wanted is happening, unfortunately.
right,
And
right.
people are really
So,
waking up their eyes to
yeah. So,
this is not a time to lose faith. This is a time to save your faith, prove your faith. There's nothing wrong. Like religion needs to be either reformed or let go of and understood that the
uh
religion is a cage on faith.
it is a cage on faith that it doesn't allow you to open up yourself to other options and possibilities.
Well, the faith, so with everything I've said there so far, Christianity as is today, which is Romanized, um, is the biggest psyop, I think, in all of this reality. Not saying that being followers of Christ is the problem, or like having like Jesus and Christ and all that there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's our innate birthright, and that's why it's been the easiest tactic to use to their advantage. Rome is the one that approved the story of Christianity, but Rome is also who killed the Savior. Why would they write the truth and want us to
Right.
be like him? They didn't like him. So it's like it keeps you
Okay.
thirsty
So
for it
they right, right.
without
And you
attaining it.
found this information by going online, doing some research on it.
From reading doctrine,
Well,
seeing society for what it is, seeing the behaviors of even the ones that are indoctrinated through different, there's so many. And the thing too is like, without a reason of doubt, there is one man in history that was not a Christian, and it was Jesus. Christianity came after him. He was Jewish, a rabbi, and left the temple. He went and touched grass. So to me, he was
okay.
more like of a Tao. He went back more of the root side, the wilder side, like John the Baptist, the voice of the wild. He spends 40 days in the wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
I'm
we
not,
were having a discussion about real quick.
yeah.
I don't so it don't slip my mind. We were having a discussion whenever you were telling me what about the science of the soul. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yep. Like a while ago, I mentioned the Egyptian Kemet. The Egyptians were very, very intrigued by mortality, the afterlife, life. They even today, like most people have a respect for Egyptians because it's like they almost understood how to measure the soul without what we have today, right? That's why
Hmm.
they would preserve a lot of like the brain matter and tissues. I'm not going to get too gory with this, but that's how they were studying. It's almost like they knew that the mind and God were of one. So they were studying the physicality of it. But back then you had to be passed away for that. Today we have more of a grace that we can be alive and measure it. We have so much technology that we can see how much brain activity functions with whatever reality we're going through. That's the part where, so Jesus, Rome went and called him Jesus Christ, but in truth it was Jesus the Christ. That changes a lot. That means he was identified as something that wasn't his last name, because Christ itself comes from the Greek, which was Christos, which was the anointed one, divinely anointed. Not that like the majority of people said, oh wow, you're godly, here we vote you in. It was the ones that just above all proved from their own endeavors that they were of Christos. Those are the people that had the embodiment of masculine, feminine, and when it's like that's the like uncorruptedness of it, not being left brain or right brain functioning, not being too logical, not being too emotional, balanced out. Those were people usually that could lead their people to either survive, rise, move. Like the nomads, there was always someone like the chiefly people, and it's because they had more of like an intelligence to them. And if knowledge is God, it would make sense that the more like the higher the intelligence, I would say more on an emotional aspect too, the more of a primitive aspect we have of survival. And that's where the science comes into me. We are eventually going to be able to prove a science here, and it's not to take away God. It's like the story is starting to really prove itself that it's been a fabricated narrative, a lot of it, for the wrong people to take advantage of. I think that the more we understand the truth of it, which at the end of the day, that's what Christ says a lot too. It's like, it's truth. We need to be finding truth.
We need to be finding truth. That's some deep information right there. You also you brought up when we were having this talk before this. What do you mean by the Christ light that's within us? What do you mean by that? How do you explain it?
So I've experienced it myself because of breath work. So specific types of breath work and exercises that people will do will actually have, like if you close your eyes, you will see flashing light. Some people, it looks like a kaleidoscope. Sometimes it's just like a round disc it looks like light, but it's basically the eyes are seeing the brain's electric currents and activity, which means that our brains do have light. I mean, we already know that too. Like if we actually hook up someone to machinery and to check how their minds work, there is
like neurology.
Mm-hmm. So there is light in our
MRIs
mind
and stuff like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you were also telling me something about you did some math and you figured out something. Remember you were telling me about something that you did, some new math that
I
with the
haven't really added
symbols?
the math to it yet, but there is sacred geometry that I've come up with that seems to pull in a lot of truth, because symbolism was the original language of the ancients. And the reason I say that is because geometry and the stars were the first things that our intellect and our consciousness has mapped out across the board, from the Egyptians to the Mayans to the Sumerians. It was geometry. Like you had the pine cone, look at the pyramids. Even if you look at the Celtic nodding system that they had, like there was always patterns that they read, and the only thing that's common across the board there, from Egypt to the Mayans to Sumeria to the Norse, is the night sky. And a lot of them have figured out navigation systems through it, building blocks, survival tactics. We've been mapped, like we are way more
Right.
intelligent than they want us to know. I don't think that we only are meant to use, they say 10% of our brain, but science has come out and said that's not true. And I mean, anyone who believes that clearly needs to read a book. But in my mind, it's a patriarchal system. Like, let's say, for example, 1950s, patriarchal man. He works his 9 to 5 every day. He goes home. He does not cook. It's ready for him. So he's not using his mind for that. Right after he's done eating, he sits on the couch. He watches TV. He's completely programmed. Then he goes to bed and he wakes up in the morning. His clothes are full. He doesn't wash his clothes. He doesn't do anything. He just puts them on. And then he has breakfast. It's ready for him. His lunch is ready for him. He punches in, punches out. That's hibernation. Like, that man is doing about the bare minimum that a mind can do at that point. So this is why I think they cut us
Right.
off at a certain age of like wanting to learn or needing to learn. They keep us from the 0 to 12 in school, and you get your career just to be part of the system. And then it's like people don't go deeper with knowledge, and they keep all the spiritual knowledge away from kids. And I think high school children at this point need to be, they should have a basis in philosophy. I think it's important, especially for young men.
Right.
The afflictions
Okay,
of the heart.
that makes sense though. Exactly what you're saying. Yeah, it's kind of like, what you're saying is that there's a cap for what education that you can be exposed to and in school levels, and they should actually teach you more about the history of what's going on.
And
And
even the self. There's
you're right,
no
we are kind of
teaching, like even the juveniles, I find like that, especially those formative years, like the teenagers were more rambunctious, we're rebellious, we're starting to form our identity more, and they don't give us that individuality to it. They want us still in that cookie cut, and that's why we've become so rebellious, I think. We don't want to all be the same. We're not meant to be all the same. We can treat each other the same, but we're not meant to express ourselves the same.
So you say that it's a program that not everybody is opening up their mind to their full capabilities. And you're saying that the mind can actually do use, because what do they say with the percentage of the brain that
They
you
say like
use?
for a long
How many
time it was
percent?
10%, that we only use about 10%. I think that when you're
Mhm.
learning, you're creating neural pathways. Every time you're learning something, so if you're at 10% of your brain in midlife, maybe it's because you stopped learning and you're losing neural pathways and not creating them. That could also maybe be the reason why there's a rise in Alzheimer's and dementia. People do a lot more cushy jobs too for a long time. You're not actually using all your senses to keep your mind sharp. It's like if you don't use it, you lose it kind of deal.
Right,
I think
right.
learning
So you're
is
saying that we need to
important.
fluctuate our brain a lot more often than what we should.
I think we should be learning more about like ourselves and like outside of ourselves too. We're not paying attention to that. People are just they're just trapped in themselves, not paying attention, just trapped there. And that's where it's like, to me, that is the metaphorical perfection of what they've wanted. They've crucified us to ourselves, which,
Encaged our thought process that where they don't
yeah,
want us to really be able to be out of
they
the full
demonize
potential of
philosophy.
processing.
Yeah. Yeah. And they demonize it too. They demonize philosophy. They've demonized so much of the external teachings out of church and what was their programming and what they needed for their abuse systems to keep going. It's a deep and
So
long system.
when you get down into it and it comes to going to church and reading the Bible, is there that's good in your perspective? That's still a good way to get this information, or do you think there's more out there than the Bible that people need to look into?
There's more, and there was a reason why for a long time there was a rule of thumb that I think the Bible needs to be rewritten through the lens of actually full understanding. Like, so without a philosophical mindset or a perspective, you're going to take it very twisted. And I think that's what happened. If you can't understand philosophy and you can't understand poetry or metaphor, parables, you're going to ruin it. And they say that people that can actually read it for what it is, that we cherry pick. We don't cherry pick. The cherry picking comes from not understanding.
Right. From understanding. So, one other question for you. What advice could you have for anybody out there? Like, as far as in if they want to get more information about faith and religion and about what's really going on out there, what advice do you have?
I think that faith is 100% a real thing across the board. Faith is the oneness. We all have different languages. We've had different symbolism. We have different ancestry, different histories, but across the board, they all had faith. So there's a oneness there. I think that at this point, especially the followers of Christ, the Christians, there is a spiritual war going on, and it's not a physical war I'm talking about when I say spiritual. It's, like I said, they've got us almost crucified to ourselves. I think finding out the truth about Christ is very important at this point. So reading the books that Rome took out, like I said, the generations of abuse, which Christ called himself the generation of vipers. We call them boomers. And it was always just another historical. It's crazy. The programming keeps repeating itself. And the Dead Sea Scrolls, they carry a lot of deeper insight, but especially the Nag Hammadi, which are basically the teachings of Christ for what they were. And it's okay to fight for what you believe in. Just if you can't make a friend out of everyone, you don't need to make an enemy out of them either. Like, getting angry and hateful over faith and your belief is you've lost the battle. It's not something to get emotional like that about. It's not something to take on if you took it on a personal level, which is an emotional reaction, it's not your soul answering. It's your ego. So don't be fighting for your faith with ego. That's not faith. That's religion. That's what they want you to do.
So I got one other question for you. What do you believe in God, correct?
I do. I like a oneness, an intelligent source, yes.
Yeah, the one source. You're just diving deeper into it on why and trying to put everything in perspective. So
I think that
overall,
at this point there isn't a
what
unity.
is
Yeah.
go ahead.
I just think that unity is the only answer at this point.
Unity is.
We need to rise above what they're giving us, which is intelligence and it's knowledge. And from where I've seen, it's all the books I took out of doctrine. They say that knowledge is God. Keep learning. Keep questioning is the middleman's problem, not God. God can be questioned. Truth can be questioned. A lie can't be questioned.
Awesome. Red Gospel, appreciate you so much for coming on Shed Talking, giving us this insight and your perspective.
Yeah, I don't stop praying, guys. Prayer